Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Back to Sports Refresher webinar. My name is Sharif. I'm one of the product specialists here at Shoflo. Man, what a year it's been. I know a lot of you have had your seasons entirely canceled. Some have played games without fans. So here at Shoflo, we thought now would be a good time to have a webinar, a refresher webinar session, since some, or if not most of you, are having fans back in the stands and you're getting back into show flow. So this webinar, really, we're just focusing on game script / rundowns and global element manager. But before we get into that, I did want to let you know what we've been working on for the past year. It's a new product you might not be aware of. It's called Shoflo Studio. Studio is a cloud-based solution for streaming content at broadcast quality. Now, because it's browser-based, it's more of a lightweight alternative to something like vMix or TriCaster, or you can use it as a complement for either of those softwares. But as a director in Shoflo Studio, you can switch between presenters, uploaded media, lower thirds, overlays, you name it. Now, like a use case scenario of you probably where you might use Studio is doing a second screen or a virtual event for season ticket holders, or any event that you might have defaulted to Zoom in the past, but you want more polish. So if that fits your use case or others, I think Studio might be for you. So you can fire up a free trial today. Now, before we get started, we do have a quick video for you from some of our customers on why they appreciate Shoflo. I hope you enjoy.
What's up, everybody? This is Kyle Campbell, Director of Game Experience with the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. I'm here to tell you my top 2 reasons why I love Shoflo. Number 1 is how much time it saves me. Once I've built that first script and have everything laid out the way I want it in a column order set, it saves me hours upon hours every single week. It's incredible with that. And second, it's absolutely got to be the customer service, led by JP Chat and the rest of the Shoflo team. They're always there to answer questions, and if they may not have an answer to something, they want to dig deep into it, and they want to find a way to make it happen for us, the clients here. And that is why I love Shoflo.
Hi, my name is Nikki Sim. I'm the project manager for the Cleveland Indians, and I want to give a huge thank you shout out to Shoflo. Shoflo has benefited us in a ton of ways, but my favorite has been the use of global elements, which saves us so much time. Baseball has a lot of games throughout the season and a lot of games in a row. So the fact that I can create 7 or more rundowns in just a matter of a few hours is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Shoflo, and all that you do.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Kyle, for the kind words. Now, we want this live stream to be engaging. So as JP is going through some of our content here, we want you to ask some questions. So please submit your questions in the Q&A section to the right of the video. Okay, let's go ahead, and I'd like to introduce the person leading our training session. That is JP Chat. He's our Director of Customer Success. Hey, JP.
Hey, Sharif, and thank you for the introduction. And again, thank you to Kyle and Nikki. Now, what we're going to do to reiterate what Sharif said is have a very sports industry specific refresher on Shoflo Rundown and a little bit of the Global Elements Manager. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, I'm sharing my screen, and what you see here is the team dashboard. If you are a team admin, when you log in, this is where you will land. And if you are like a lot of sports teams who are just getting back into Shoflo, your team dashboard might be a little bit sparse. You may not have an event in there yet for your upcoming season. So let me first walk you through how to set that up. Now, I'm assuming that in your archived events or past events area, you are going to have an event for, say, your 2019 sports ball season. Now, the way that we would encourage you to go about setting up for your upcoming season is by duplicating a past season. So I'll go ahead and click duplicate. And here I'll go ahead and call this the 2021 sports ball season and hit create. Well, actually, before I hit create, I should probably say that the start and end date should encapsulate my entire season. So let's say I'm running from April 1st until August 31st. Now I'll go ahead and hit create, and it'll go ahead and take that 2019 season, duplicate it, and add it to my upcoming events. So you'll see I now have a second event here on my team dashboard. And when I click into that, it's also going to have all of the rundowns and other files that were a part of that original 2019 season. Now, most of y'all's 2019 season is going to have several files here in your dashboard. So what I'd recommend you do first is go through and delete any rundowns or archive them. And essentially limit it to just one. That one rundown that you'll be using as the foundation for all other rundowns and game scripts that you create during your 2021 season. Now, this naming convention that you see here is a good one that I'd encourage you to use. It has all the information that's relevant to your team. But let's go ahead and duplicate this rundown as well. And when I get my copy in here, I will then rename this copy, let's just call it game template. That way everyone knows that this is my basis for all the future games, right? So I'll just save that. And that is how we encourage you to go about setting up your environment for all of your upcoming games. And if you are working on multiple games at the same time, say it's baseball and you have a homestand and it's 3 games coming up that are very similar, you can just go ahead and duplicate your game template several times. Now, the thing that's really important, or one of the biggest benefits of duplicating your past rundowns and rundowns from past events, is that the structure of your rundown doesn't change. And that means that if that original game script was tied to your global elements manager, then these duplicates will also remain properly tied and matched, where everything matches up properly. So that's a little bit about how you would go about setting up and a little bit about the dashboard itself. Now, Sharif, as you monitor the chat, have you seen any questions come through from the audience so far?
No questions yet. I guess you're just super clear, JP. But I would like to ask a question that I get on occasion when I'm talking to people interested in Shoflo. It pertains to the kind of a workflow setup in Shoflo. So what do you prefer, or could you maybe dive into a little bit more detail about either workflow here? Having multiple games or multiple game scripts in one event, or having a game script per event?
Okay, so there are benefits to both scenarios. And what Sharif is referring to is, instead of having a rundown represent every game and all exist within one big event that represents the entire season, maybe instead on the team dashboard have an event for every game. Part of the benefit of going that method would be some of the branding. You can use your event logos to brand who your opponent that week might be and things like that. However, going that route also means that the person that goes about making new rundowns needs to be a team admin, because only a team admin can create new events. So if the person in charge of creating rundowns and game scripts doesn't necessarily have the highest level permission in Shoflo, you may want to go the other route, which is invite them in as a regular admin or event crew admin, and they will be able to create other rundowns within that specific event.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks. Well, I don't see any more questions right now, so keep on trucking, JP.
All right. So now I'll go ahead and click into this game 1 on 406 versus Toon Squad. And this will bring me into the rundown itself. Now let me go ahead and pinch to zoom here, because the very first thing we want to talk about is timing. Now, probably the most important thing to know about timing is that the start column and the clock time column are your automated columns. These values are calculated by the system based on the durations that you give us. So when it comes to building out your rundown, you'll do so not by entering in the start time or clock times of all these different elements. You'll actually do so by giving us the durations and allowing the system to calculate those values for you. Now, by default, when starting from a blank rundown, all of that automation is going to start from the top and trickle down. But when it comes to sports, it's often the case that you have a pregame and you have all of these elements that timing is not dictated on gates open, but is actually dictated on when the kickoff, tip-off, or puck drop might be for that game. So something that we have set up within this example rundown is called reverse auto timing. And you can see that element number 28 has a flag and an up and down arrow next to it. That's letting me know that this particular element is the one that's guiding all of the calculations above and below. Now, if I were to remove that flag, which I can do here by, let me unpinch, as that made that render incorrectly, but I can reset that arrow now. And you'll notice that all of my timing resets to being from the top down. And if I were to, say, make a change to one of these durations and make this not a 3-minute element, maybe it's going to be a 1 minute and 45-second element, you'll notice that every subsequent element is now impacted by that change. Now, you may have seen that change occur here in the start column, but in the clock time column, it kind of worked in the opposite direction. And that's because the reversed auto timing is still in place for this column. So yes, the start and clock time columns are independent of each other, which means that you can really customize your game script for your particular needs. Now, I will bring this back to be a manual override, but let's say instead of it being a 5 o'clock game, we'll say it's a 7:08 p.m. start, and I will also click the up arrow here, and that'll make it a reverse auto timing. If I didn't do that and I just manually changed a time on a start element, what this does is it adds a flag, but it also stops that flow of time starting down here. So when it comes to your manual overrides or your flag times, we strongly encourage you to have just one and have that be your single source of truth for that automation. So if you come across this kind of break, just click that reset arrow. That gets rid of the flag and it allows your main element to handle the calculations. Sharif, I know that timing can be a little tricky. So are there any questions from the audience regarding that particular topic or maybe anything that we've covered thus far?
No questions yet. But I did have a question, or I wanted to clarify something, and because I saw that we had a new person, first time using Shoflo. And so again, just wanted to go ahead and emphasize durations are your best friend. So the less you rely on changing your start time, the better, and you just rely more on durations.
Correct. Yes. And that can be, well, that's going to become even more evident in this next section where I cover timing, but I'm going to be talking a little bit more about specific scenarios like the one I built out for our timeout blocks, right? So what I ended up doing in our timeout blocks was creating a header row and a footer row to signify that these elements belong to my timeout block. So let's go ahead and bring this, there we go. And we'll notice that in this timeout block, I've got a 2-minute flagged time there. That's my way of saying that I have allotted 2 minutes to this particular block of elements. If I were to change this and say it's 3 minutes and 45 seconds, we'll notice that immediately these values here change, and that at the bottom, my over/under for that particular block changes to let me know that I now have 1 minute and 45 seconds buffer, or maybe it's time that I need to fill, right? Now, the same thing would be true if, say, I took this sponsorship element and changed it to be a 2 minute 40 second element instead of just 40 seconds, you'll notice that again, these calculations change automatically to let me know how much time I would have left at the start of each element. And because I'd only have 25 seconds left at the start of this car giveaway, that tells me that I'm going to run over by 15 seconds. So this is just one way for you to build out your rundowns and keep track of how much time you might be over or under for a particular block. So that's the basics regarding timing. Your start time will use the duration value of an element and add it to itself to calculate the subsequent element's start time. The clock time works in the inverse. You're telling us how much time we have, and each time we are subtracting the duration from that clock time to calculate the very subsequent element. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is show caller tracking. Show caller tracking and timing work together in a few different ways, but they're tightly coupled, right? You'll notice that when I hover over these elements, I'm getting to see this blue track button. Now, that will only appear if a user has show caller permission levels. And I've given myself show caller permission levels over this particular rundown or this event. If I happen to click on that track button, the IRT at the top of the screen will begin to count down immediately, and it'll start counting down from the duration set for that particular element. Additionally, that title of that element is going to become highlighted in blue. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone else's screen is going to automatically become, highlighted in blue in that way. If they have not begun to follow along with me, would just see my name in blue on that element. However, there's really two sides to show caller tracking. There's being the show caller and broadcasting your location and show for all the others to see. And then there's being a crew member following along with that show caller. In order to follow a show caller and have your screen automatically adjust as the show caller progresses from element to element, you would need to select that show caller's name from this menu down here. Now, right now, we don't see any options in that menu, and that's because I am the sole show caller, and I can't follow myself. But anyone else that was logged into this rundown, or really any rundown in this event, would be able to select my name and have their screen automatically update. Now, the benefit of this is that your team can be looking at their board, whether it's the audio mixer or your graphics display, and they can know that whenever they glance over at Shoflo's rundown, it's going to be exactly where they need it to be. It's going to be where the show caller is and showing them the appropriate timing, of course, here at the top. And I'll just go ahead and pause there. Sharif, any questions from the audience or from that you can recollect from your experiences?
Yes, we actually have one from Tyler. So Tyler, he's with the Aberdeen Ironbirds. Hey, Tyler. He has a question about a feature that he thought he remembered. So if I remember from a year ago, there was a feature that may have been in beta. It shows how much time you have how much time you are either ahead or running behind. And I think, Tyler, you're knocking on the door of OverUnder. So JP, do you want to explain that?
Absolutely. And yes, you are, Tyler. OverUnder is that other feature, and you can turn that particular feature on. And when you do, what the system does is it keeps track of what your offset is for a particular element. And it'll do this throughout the entire rundown. Now, what I mean by offset is the difference between how much time you allotted via the duration and how much time the show caller actually spent on that element. For example, this element that we're on right now, the sponsor Kiss Cam, I spent more than the 2 minutes and 40 seconds that I allotted to it. So our offset, as you can see, is going up, and this third clock at the top of the screen opens up. Let me just go ahead and pinch so that you can see it right there next to the item runtime clock. Now, this is also giving me an update for when your rundown is supposed to end, but that's mistaken right now because I didn't build out my rundown fully correct. This is just an example. But notice that now if I were to track another element, that offset remains underneath the element above, letting me know that on that particular element, I went over by how much I went over, etc. Now, notice that on the element that I'm currently on, that value is green, letting me know that I'm light currently. And if I were to hit the space bar to advance the very next element, you'll notice that a green offset remains and that these two offsets were added up to give me my total over-under for, every element thus far. Tyler, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I don't know if JP, if you can zoom in a little bit under that over under, it even gives you the estimated end time as well, so you can see what time you might be ending. And now, first, I love the chat. It is popping off, and I love that everyone is answering each other's questions. And so the over-under in beta, that is kind of a different feature from what the over-under, what JP's template has, having the over-under in there. If you are interested in that feature, but you don't have it on, just click the chat bubble on the bottom right, request for it to be on, and we can turn it on for you. I think that is actually we have a few more. Here's another one from Phil. With regard to start times, if we have a 7:05 p.m. game one day, okay, there we go. Game one day and 6:05 game the next, can we change the game time and they will update all of the elements?
That is correct. Yes. Now, what you would do in that particular scenario is you would duplicate your game one script, and I just jump back out here to the event dashboard, and I will click here and hit duplicate rundown, and maybe the subsequent game is going to be against, maybe it's against the Toon Squad again, but it's on the 8th, and it is game number 2. I can just go ahead and hit save on that. And when I jump back into this game script, as opposed to the other one I was in earlier, all I would need to do was change the singular flag time, and then all subsequent elements are automatically, or subsequent or previous elements. In this case, let's go ahead and make it 6:08, and we'll see that everything above gets recalculated based on this new value here.
Awesome. Great. I've got a fun question. I think I could take this one, JP. This is from Greg. It says, this is great, but I'm a little distracted trying to watch this while working. Will this be available to view later? You better believe it, Greg. We will have this available on our website to view later. Hey, if it's okay with you, JP, can we fit in one more question? Because I know you have a lot of stuff to get through. All right. Okay, this one is from Carl. Can you have multiple users / individual logins off of a single email address?
Well, we would advise against it. We would advise that every user be logged in with their own independent email address. And this will just ensure that each user has the best experience, and it's consistent. Otherwise, there may be scenarios where the system thinks that user Carl has the latest, but because there's 2 user Carls, one of them doesn't. So we'd advise against having that same email address logged in to multiple devices at the same time.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, JP. Well, that's it for questions for now. So keep on going.
All right. So like I said about show caller tracking, it's a great way for your crew to at a glance get an idea of where you are. And we have a view that's specifically designed for control rooms that might not have the real estate for everyone to have their own device on Shoflo. So that is called display view. And display view is designed to be outputted to a large display in the control room so that everyone can just glance up at it and see where the show caller is. To get to the display view, you would just click on the eye icon, which is at the top right. This is our appearance menu. And clicking on there, and just selecting display view. And I'll just pinch to resize this. And you'll notice that it's a very simplified view, but here I would select the name of a show caller to tie this particular view to. So display view is meant to be passive. So you log in at an unmanned station and then pipe this out to that large screen in the control room. And since you've chosen to follow along with the show caller, whenever the show caller advances, so too does the display view. Now, because it's simplified, we've made it so that you get to pick which column, which of your contributor columns is the one that gets displayed here on the right-hand side. Typically, something generic like production notes is what's going to be chosen there instead of something specific to, say, audio or video, if there's more than one department's crew within that room. And again, that's the eye icon in the appearance menu. But I'll just go ahead and switch right back over to the compact view, which is the default view. And from here, I was going to jump into how you would apply some of the rich formatting that you see here within the rundown. Now, this is just an example of what you can do, but I think that it's a really great way to make it easy to scan your rundown and see what type of elements are coming up. In order to apply this type of prefix, all you really need to do is enter edit mode and then use the pop-up menu over here to apply special formatting. So let's say for my SOTs, I want to apply a slightly different color to my text. Maybe I want them to be red. I can make that change in that pop-up menu. And then, of course, just duplicate that formatting by duplicating rows or copying and pasting the cells would be the easiest way to go about that. Now, there is another way for you to apply formatting, but to the entire contents of the cell, and that's by using this formatting toolbar up top. But let's go into a scenario where Global Elements Manager is being used, right? Let's say that this particular element over here, or this timeout, grew from being a 2-minute one to a 2-minute and 45 seconds. So I've got to find 45 seconds to fill. Now, I can retrieve a sponsorship element by going to my Global Elements Manager. I simply open that up. I choose the element set that I want to pull an element from, and I see that Back to Sports is already selected. And maybe the very next thing I want to do is select from my sponsorship elements because I know that it's a sponsorship element I need to fit in there. And it looks like I've got a few that are 40 seconds long, so I can use any of those to fill that timeout, which is this one right over here. So let's just say we're going to take the mascot cake surprise and we're going to move that over here into this element. Notice that I just grabbed that element from the right-hand side and dropped it into this location over here. And you even saw that occur down here in my rundown itself. Now I'll just hide that start time and it'll match the aesthetic that I've set up for the rest of the rundown. And we'll see that now I only have 5 seconds buffer. So that's okay. I can, show the band or something like that during that time. Now, that's an example of retrieving your global elements. Now, something else that you might want to do is maybe the mascot cake surprise has a new sponsor. And now it's going to be the Geico mascot cake surprise. Well, you can make that change not just to this element here, but you can also push it out to the parent element that lives in the Global Elements Manager and to the other rows that exist either across this same rundown or maybe in game 1 if you're editing games 1, 2, and 3 at the same time. The way that you would do that is by using the globe icon that you see at the far left of your rundown, of your row here. And I'll just zoom in so that you can see this more clearly. Clicking the globe icon opens up the global element menu. And from there, I'd simply say, publish current version to either the Global Elements Manager, the parent, or everywhere. And everywhere allows me to select the parent and other rundowns. So let's select that option. And I'll select that and zoom back out. And you'll see that here it's telling me everywhere that this particular element exists. If I want to update this across all of them, I simply leave them all selected. But I do have the option to select update here, don't update over here. So take, for instance, this same element exists in the Back to Sports webinar. I don't want to touch it there. I really just want to work with my game scripts that are in the 2021 season, and I'll leave my game template as one of the options as well. So I just deselected the one rundown that's in a different event, and now I'll go ahead and hit publish changes. Something you'll notice is that this very same rundown we were in was among the options on that list. And if I were to scroll down to where the mascot cake surprise element is in this very same rundown, you'll see that it was updated to be named the Geico mascot cake surprise as well. So that's a little bit of the basics behind Global Elements Manager and retrieving an element, updating an element, things like that. Sharif, any questions there before I jump into the Global Elements Manager parent area?
Yeah, we sure do. First thing about Global Element Manager, one, as JP jumps into it, know that it comes with its own separate training call. We know that's very involved, so just be aware of that. But this question comes from regarding templates. So this has come from Phil. Are there templates set up by Shoflo for baseball with pre-game and 9-inning games that we can use if we're starting off from scratch?
Yes, Phil, there are. If you go to create new and hit rundown, you'll be able to select from Shoflo's rundown templates. Now you'll notice that up here there is a team templates area that's currently empty. That would be where you put your own templates. So you can even create your own rundown and then save it as a template that can be reused here. But notice that we do have a baseball, and I'll just go ahead and call this baseball and hit create. And then go ahead and click on that rundown to enter it. And you'll see that its pregame might be a little bit more baseball specific, and that its mid breaks, bottoms, and all the different innings are all kind of formatted in a more baseball specific way. So yes, we do have that as a great starting point for not just the baseball sport, but we have them for a lot of other sports as well. So we encourage you to check those out and look to them for inspiration on how to build out your own rundowns.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, that's it for now. So keep on going with Global Element Manager.
Okay. So the Global Elements Manager, it's important to know that because those elements are global, they exist at the team level or at the top level in your organization. So in order for someone to be able to work with Global Elements Manager, they do need to be a team admin. And the Global Elements tab here in the team dashboard is how they would access that element set. That's where we call the bucket in which all of these elements live. And if I just were to click on back to sports, that brings me into the Global Elements Manager. Notice that it looks a lot like your rundowns, but it has that bright purple bar at the top, and that's there to help, make sure that you don't think you're working inside of a rundown. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see probably what's the most unique thing about this space, and that's that you can see all of the tags associated with elements. Now, these can be really handy when you are trying to quickly retrieve something that's specifically a sponsorship element or something that's specifically an in-game element or, things like that. And as you can see, you can apply multiple tags, and you can edit what tags you have applied to a particular row by clicking on the tag icon at the far left. Now, you can even create brand new tags, but creating brand new tags would be done from the page I was just at before. Now, the other thing that's unique about this area here is that you're not seeing the start and the clock time columns. You're instead just seeing the duration. And that's because the start and clock time values are going to depend on where you drop this specific element into your rundown. So if you drop it right after an element that started or ended at 6 o'clock, then this team warm-ups is going to end at 6:15. So that's why only the durations column is the timing column visible here in the Global Elements Manager. Now, the next thing I wanted to go over is how you are going to output your content or share content that you've created in Shoflo, with other users, right? And let's go ahead and click on 2021 season again, and this time jump right back into the game 2 that I'd set up over here. And I'm going to now click on the download/share icon that we see here near the top right. That's this icon right here. This is going to be where you go to create your PDF exports or to work with GuestPass, the other output options, one of the other output options I'll be going over today. Now, PDF export's probably going to be your main export option. So we'll go ahead and click PDF export, and I will zoom right back out. And you'll see that here on the right-hand side, we get a preview of what our output is going to look like. And I can modify it if I'd like, hiding the private notes column. Perhaps I want to hide the production notes column as well. And you'll see that on the right-hand side, I get a live preview of how that might be affecting my printout. Additionally, on the right-hand side, I can add things like page breaks. So say I want a page break between all of my notes to be on one page and then the start of my rundown. I could simply click between these two rows, and that would add a page break there. Additionally, I can move over to preview mode, and in the preview mode, I can see how, or the system generates a PDF, so I can see what that's going to look like. And here you can see that the page break did indeed take effect, and that the next page is the one that contains every other row. So that's the basics regarding exporting to PDF. And know that, yes, you can save some presets so that you can quickly print out the way that your PA likes it and the way that your video engineers like it, etc. So the next thing I wanted to show you guys is Word export. Word export is specifically designed for your PA announcers. This is a way for them to get the script in a format that's just easy for them to read directly off the paper if they're old school and would just prefer to do it that way. Now, here the trick is to mark the PA script column as your hero. That becomes the column that their content is printed nice and large over here. And the rest of the columns you can choose to either show or not. And I can just turn off these other values, limiting it to item number, item title, and the actual script content. Now, the next little tip I have for you is clicking the skip rows with no hero content. This will mean that the doc that you export is only going to contain the rows that actually have text in it, as opposed to those empty rows that may not have a PA read associated with them. Now, lastly is the text size override. Sometimes it's nice to have a printout where the text is extra large. So you can override the size of the text, making it extra large. And if I were to hit download script, that will automatically download this Word file for me. And let's see if this opens up nicely. And it doesn't look like it did, probably because I'm in full screen mode. But that is how you would, oh, there we go. Let me just oversize this. But here's an example of what that printout would look like, where we're just showing the number, the title, and of course the text extra large. So the last way that you can share content is that I want to go over today is GuestPass. It's again in the same share/download menu, and it is the last option. GuestPass is amongst my favorite features in Shoflo because it removes that need for version tracking when it comes to exports of your rundown. Instead of it being a PDF or a doc that is a snapshot of your rundown or game script in that moment, it's a live URL. And whenever people go to this URL, they will be seeing the very latest version of your rundown. Just like with a PDF export, you can choose what columns get or what columns are visible to any of your guests. And think of guests as clients or vendors that you may want to give visibility on your game script, but not necessarily invite them into Shoflo. So simply enabling the GuestPass and sharing that link there is the way to use that feature. But I do want to make sure that we leave a few minutes of time for Q&A. So Sharif, are there any questions, or what questions are at the top of the list right now?
Yeah, we do have a few. one is about guest pass, and it's something that I think I can go ahead and handle. So this one comes from Avery. If you give someone a guest pass, can they track the show caller as well? Avery, that is not a feature of guest pass. You do need to be logged into Showflow. You can have either of the 4 permission levels. All you do is select the show caller, and you'll be able to track along. But guest pass is, once it's loaded, it's there. It's not doing anything until you click that link again or refresh your browser. So that's guest pass. Anything you wanted to add there, JP, or was that pretty succinct?
No, that's absolutely right.
Awesome. All right. We have Jen here, brand new to Showflow. Welcome, Jen. Thanks for joining the Showflow team, or being a Showflow user, to be more accurate. Is there a way to reorganize columns to emphasize / enlarge reads for a given element?
Yes. Let me go over some of that. Now, every user can have their own custom column order and column visibility. Now, what that means is that, say you're the audio engineer and you really have no interest in seeing the video board or ribbon boards columns are just going to be busying up your screen. You can hide those without it impacting anyone else in your, in the rundown, how anyone else views that specific rundown. Now, when it comes to what you might be seeing here, which is my PA script column is a lot wider than the other columns. That is a global setting. And what I did was I set the PA script column's width to be script wide. Now, if I click on this chevron here to the right of my columns, well, let me do so maybe here where it could be that the pinch in is not letting it render. So I'll click on this again. Let me refresh my browser real quick. But the column edit menu, which is what you would open up by clicking on that chevron to the right of your column headers, is what you would use to both hide a column, move a column, so moving columns left to right, which again is a personal setting and you get to choose your own. These options over here are the width. And the width is a global setting. So if I were to change the width of this particular column to wide, this would impact everyone. Everyone would see this column a little bit wider than the rest. But again, the column visibility, which is hide and show all columns, and the moving of columns left to right is a personal setting, not a global setting.
Awesome.
Sharif?
Yeah, thanks for that. We do have a few more questions about guest pass. Or actually, I actually wanted to ask you, JP, a few more clarifications about guest pass, because I know it's a powerful feature. It's my favorite feature or export as well. Could you walk through how you would, let's say you have multiple game scripts in one event, how you would toggle one on and off, and maybe the benefit of that?
Absolutely. Great point, Sharif. So I showed you how to use guest pass at the show level. And again, that is at the top right, the download/share button, and clicking guest pass opens up that guest pass modal. But what we're talking about here is the specific guest pass to this rundown, this game script, game number 2. There is also the benefit when you are duplicating your games to create subsequent games, is that if you enabled the guest pass on game 1 or game 2, when you duplicate those, all of the same guest pass settings are going to be duplicated for game 3. And there is such a thing as guest pass at the event level. And here in the event dashboard, if you click on the share option and click on event guest pass, that'll open up the event guest pass modal, where again, I simply need to enable that URL. And instead of you sharing a link that is the guest pass directly to a rundown, you can share this guest pass that gives them access to every single game in your season. And because this guest pass URL doesn't change, you can share it now at the beginning of your season. And as you add more files to this event with an enabled guest pass, which you can also enable here, they will just appear for your clients, vendors, or other interested parties that have the guest pass link you shared with them. Sharif, I hope that answers that question.
That was a great answer, JP. That's spot on. We have another question from Greg. Again, just love the questions, everyone. Keep sending them. You put them in chat or click that blue ask button. Are you able to export a range of pages? I believe this is probably maybe the PDF export is what Greg is talking about.
I believe so as well. You cannot currently say only export certain pages or certain rows. The PDF export will export the entirety of your rundown. It would be when you're printing them or distributing it out another way. Once you have the actual PDF, you'd have to do the edit on it.
Okay. I think just looking for a few more questions. I think we've answered a good bit. I guess one thing, another kind of a best practice is, could you walk someone through, let's say they have a game script they've used in Excel and they would like to import it. Could you walk them through how they could do that?
I wish I had an example file, but the trick would be to take that Excel game script and strip it of any merged cells. And once you've got that, output it as a CSV file. What you'd want to do is come over here to the Create New area, click on the CSV import option, and then here, select what type of file you wish to create from that CSV. In your case, I suspect it'll be a show, since that's what we call our rundowns. Notice here you have an example of what your sample Excel file should look like. But yeah, you just provide us with the CSV file, and then you tell us how to map the item columns and the duration columns and things like that, and we will create the file for you. And if you happen to have any issues with CSV import or really exploring any of the features that I went over today, remember this smiling blue circle at the bottom right. That is our live chat and your way to reach out to me and the rest of the support team for help.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks, JP. Well, I think we are all good. We don't see any more questions. And I think you've covered everything, JP. So again, thank you. Hey, before we head out, I do want to let you know about two things. The first is a platform. It's a forum, actually, that we created for you. And it's called Shoflo Backstage. It's an awesome forum we created for you. So when you join, you'll find professionals such as yourselves sharing industry tips and best practices. So head to backstage.shoflo.tv. And lastly, if you have joined us and you are not a customer, but you want to give Shoflo a test drive, head to our website, shoflo.tv, to fire up a 14-day free trial. So that's it. Thanks, everyone. Big thank you to our training extraordinaire, JP Chat. Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you have a safe and fantastic season.